Some kids have tempers, and it gets to the point it's destroying them. Is there anything you could do to get them to handle that explosive behavior?
Well, when I work with the kids, I teach them anger management, and I do a lot of paradoxical thinking or using helping. Again, it's really more helping them see the other side. How does the other person feel, like you were saying with the empathy, and also showing the child that when I say paradoxical, they're defeating themselves. Everything they want, they're losing because of their behavior. So as long as you start to make them see that there's something in their own interest to control their behavior, if you just come across like you're kind of scolding them, they have to go by the rules, it's disrespectful to talk that way to your parent, that's not going to cut it. You have to address why this child's having trouble tolerating frustration. And you have to show them that you understand that and that you're not just concerned about rules and regulations.
And you get more with honey than bitter herbs.
Yes.
So the anger is self-destructive and the other method isn't. So you have to get them to see what they're doing a little bit. It's hard to look in the mirror, isn't it?
It's hard for most people. And in fact, when people bring their kids to me and they can't get why their kid can't realize what they're doing and how it's self-destructive and destructive to the family, it's extremely hard, because then I'll see the same parent who has obvious problems, drinking, overweight, smoking cigarettes. They can't seem to correct their bad habits, but yet they expect this. They can't understand why their child can't.
So in other words, if you set a good example, it always very beneficial to the child down the road.
Absolutely. And again, there's so much that goes on in these households that I work in with, where it gets to the point where they have to come in. There's such argumentativeness and such stress in the house. And yeah, it will very often, and the parents will say to me something that's become very fashionable and okay in this society. I admit I scream and yell. I'm sorry, but I admit it. And we've gotten to a point where if you admit you're doing something wrong, like Lance Armstrong, then everything's okay. And I'll say to them, well, that's great that you're admitting it, but what are you doing to change it? Just because you're admitting it, in fact, the more you tell me you're doing it, it makes me a little more concerned why you're not trying to stop.
Every one of my pencils has erasers, and nothing wrong, but you have to, like you said, admit I made a mistake and move on from it, and don't keep repeating the mistake. And I always find if someone brings to my attention in a negative way, not a positive reinforcement, I try to always assess it. And maybe once, well, they're right. Lincoln was a smart guy. Did a couple of things I thought were brilliant for a guy with only 4 years of education. Mm-hmm. He put people of the opposite party in his cabinet. You know why? If they agreed with him, he was probably right. Mm-hmm. They disagreed, they might be wrong, but at least he reassessed it to a point. He said, I'm comfortable. But you have a little negotiate back and forth. The negative sometimes helps you more than the pat in the back, which you probably get if someone's on your payroll anyway. Is that correct?
I agree with you totally. In fact, what I say to people is, if you really think about it, even if it's being done with some rancor, criticism is a tremendous compliment. Someone cares enough about what you think or you did to strongly react, bring it to your attention. People pay to have consultants come in and critique them, or coaches critique them. Here, there are people who are telling you, and that's why I always say to people, if someone criticizes me, I thank them. I say, look, and it disarms them also. It's great. I thank them for telling me.